Alright, you guys, my name's Ishan Abid and welcome to JSA. Today we'll be discussing the existence of God, but before we begin, someone get the door for Miss Cooley. I think she's walking around.
Yeah, she's walking.
Okay, well we're going to start, not just yet, let me introduce JSA. Do you have any newcomers? Raise your hand if you're new.
Yeah.
I have a couple newcomers. Basically, how the process of JSA works, we just kind of get a bunch of smart people together and we talk about stuff that we don't know and we try to get to know more. We have debates. They're usually not really formal and strict, but it just kind of works. This is the gavel. You guys respect this with all your heart. One sec. If I put the gavel down, this means that everyone's going to be quiet, and if you guys talk, this gavel will go straight to your face. I'm kidding. But just stay quiet whenever I smack the gavel. Miss Cooley, advisor. I see a couple of administrators also, so give a hand for the administrators. We also have a Navy SEAL. Let's give a warm up for challenge. So basically, what we're going to start off today, we have a guest speaker, Mr. Williams. He will be giving us a 15-minute opening speech just to get our process started. He's going to bring in every single type of arena of this debate. What we'd like to do is after he finishes, if people have any opinion, just raise your hand, and I'll be picking on you guys myself. I see everyone's hand raised, and I'll be picking on you, then put your hand down and just rise and give your little 1-minute, 2-minute speech, and then sit down, and we'll kind of work on a respectful format. And please respect the speaker. That does not get me, anything does not get me more angry than someone talking over another person.
I just want to make sure you lay out the ground rules. Respect the speaker. If you want to question their points, make sure you question the point. Don't question or criticize the person. Be polite, respectful.
Deputy Maya, please call extension 1007.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Deputy Maya, call 1007.
If it happens enough,
And
Aaron starts yelling.
yeah, no fighting today. If anyone fights, I'll send Byung after you guys. But for us to start, basically, one more rule, just respect the gavel and respect the speaker, and let's not talk. If you guys talk, I will be forced to send you out of the room. So let us begin.
Yep. Thank you so much, you guys, for having me out here. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of give you guys a thought-provoking view on the question, does God exist? Just to give you guys a heads up, I pretty much had this morning to prepare this. I didn't know what I was coming into. I heard on one hand that it was going to be a formal debate, so I was like, all right, we're going to get 15, 20-minute sessions and rebuttals, or is it going to be an all-out crossfire? So I guess it's going to be something like that. The crossfire, 1 minute to each student. But they've made some room for me just to open up with this 15 minutes. So again, hopefully this is just something that will help to stir the pot, get those brains, those wheels turning. To give you guys a little bit of a background of who I am, I'm a former U.S. Navy SEAL. I served on SEAL Team 1 and SEAL Team 7. While my SEAL Team was deployed over in Iraq, I got out just last year. We were hunting down what we call HVIs, high-value individuals. These are guys that make IEDs and S-vests, suicide vests. So that kind of gives you guys an idea of what my SEAL team was doing over in Iraq. We'd go deep undercover. We wouldn't go out in American uniforms. We'd actually go out looking like Iraqi Special Operation Forces. And we wouldn't go out in our big American vehicles. We actually painted our vehicles these Iraqi colors. And we were deep embedded looking like the ISOF, these Iraqi Special Operation Force type. But if you guys want to stick around afterwards, I'll tell you a lot more about that. In fact, I've got a couple stories I do want to share with you guys. A couple of my buddies that have died for freedom. So if you want to stick around and hear about those men and what they did, it's real quick. It won't take me but 10 minutes. That'll be at the end. Let me go ahead and get into this, though. So the question, does God exist? There's a lot of arguments out there for God's existence, and there's a lot of arguments against. I'm going to present one of them to you guys, and I guess you could say it's multifaceted. We will be covering some philosophical issues and scientific issues. So, for starters, the name of this argument, it falls under being a cosmological argument. And the name of the argument is this, the Kalam cosmological argument. It's a logical syllogism. For those of you that don't know what a logical syllogism is, it has two premises. And if those two premises are true, all right, then the conclusion follows logically and inescapably. It's an airtight argument. So, in order to kick up against this argument, you have to have a problem or an issue with one or both of the premises, and I suppose you have to have better reasons to negate it, to deny it, than its affirmation. So I'll be holding up this view, the affirmation of the argument, just to give you guys a look. This is the basic layout of the argument. Premise 1, anything that begins to exist has a cause. By cause, I don't mean a purpose. I mean whatever begins to exist, something caused it to exist. Premise 2, the universe began to exist. If you affirm both of those premises, then the conclusion follows logically and inescapably that the universe has a cause. So let's kind of blow up those premises now a little bit and see what kind of good reasons we have to believe that anything that begins to exist has a cause. Premise 1. First of all, something cannot come from nothing. Nothing ever has. Out of nothing, nothing comes. To claim that something could just pop into existence out of nothing is actually worse than magic. I mean, if you think about it, at least we have the magician and the hat for him to pull the rabbit out of, but this belief that the universe could just pop into existence out of nothing is even worse than magic. To deny premise 1, you would need to believe that the universe literally just popped into existence for no reason whatsoever. But nobody sincerely believes that things can just pop into existence out of nothing. For instance, do any of you here really believe that a horse could just pop into existence uncaused for no reason and begin defiling all over the carpet? Have you guys heard a story like that today, like in one of your classes, like, hey, in that debate room, horse just popped into existence? You guys would say that's totally absurd. Well, you have to be fair too when it comes to the origin of the universe. The universe can't just pop into existence out of nothing. Now, sometimes you might have a skeptic that might recant something like this. Well, in physics, there's subatomic particles, and these particles do come into being out of nothing. Somebody that responds in such a way is either 1, ignorant of what they're talking about, or number 2, they're deliberately abusing science. Because what they're referring to is the quantum vacuum, these subatomic particles that come into existence. They suddenly appear, and then they go out of existence. Well, the vacuum is not nothing. This is not an example of something coming from nothing. Rather, it is a sea of violently fluctuating energy that's inside of this vacuum, and it's governed by the physical laws, and it has a physical structure. So these particles are coming from something. This vacuum is not nothing. Again, we're just supporting this first premise that anything that begins to exist has a cause. Things don't just pop into existence out of nothing. So this is, okay, that's not an example of something coming from nothing. Moving along then. Premise number 1 is also affirmed by the very backbone of all science, the law of causality. All right? The law of causality is constantly verified. It's never been falsified. Causality is the search for causes, that every effect has an adequate cause. If you want to try and deny causality, that there are certain effects out there that have no cause whatsoever, then you literally are undermining all of science. So that goes again to support premise 1. Anything that begins to exist has a cause. The laws of causality is the very backbone of science. So it'd be very unscientific of you if you are a skeptic and trying to say, no, things can just come into existence out of nothing, uncaused. And even the famed skeptic, David Hume, he's gone down in history saying this in one of his letters: I've never asserted so absurd a proposition as to anything might arise without a cause. Premise number 2, the universe began to exist. Let's take a look at what type of support we have that the universe began to exist. I have 1 philosophical argument to give you and 2 scientific arguments. Here's the philosophical argument. An actual infinite number of things cannot exist in reality. We have to be careful here to distinguish between what is an actual infinite and what is a potential infinite. An actual infinite is in reference to an actual set, a limit. You can't add to infinity. It's a set number. That's actual infinity. Whereas a potential infinite would be like having a starting point and then moving on and on and on into the outer limits. It's potentially infinite, but it never hits that set, that amount. Okay? So, by contradistinction, this potential infinite refers to something that just continues on and on. So remember, the argument here is that an actual number of infinite things cannot exist. This is important to the universe because it shows that an actual number of past events cannot exist. If an actual number of past events do exist, How is it that we continue to add to this number? We literally add seconds in every passing minute. You cannot add to an actual infinite. Yet seconds are going by every minute. We're adding to this supposedly actual infinite. So this shows that the universe could not have always existed, but must have had a beginning, a point at which it proceeded from. Does that make sense? You cannot add to infinity, but maybe we are going on and on into a potential infinite. That just shows that we had a starting point. It goes to support the universe began to exist. For our first scientific argument, this is what we have, the expansion of the universe. Perhaps you guys have heard this before. The universe is ever expanding. If you were to draw it on the board, you've heard of the Big Bang. It's basically like a V, a funnel. The universe is expanding outward. A couple of, one mathematician and one Belgian astronomer, during the 1920s, a Russian mathematician, Alexander Friedman, and the Belgian astronomer, George Lemaitre, took Einstein's equations of general relativity and applied them at face value, which resulted in a model of the universe that is in a constant state of expansion. By 1929, perhaps you heard of the guy before, Edwin Hubble. He made an astonishing discovery at the Mount Wilson Observatory. He had confirmed what Friedman and Lemaitre found. What Edwin had discovered has become to be known as the red shift in the galaxy. So what's the big deal? What does this red shift mean? Well, he noticed as he was looking at these distant galaxies, their color began to change to a sort of a redness. This red shift was due to the stretching of light waves as the galaxies expanded away into outer space. So this is further confirmation of what the astronomer and the mathematician had found, that this the universe, the galaxies are expanding away. We have this expansion going on. All right. Now Friedman and Lemaitre, what they discovered later became known as the Big Bang. I'm sure you folks are familiar with it. The standard Big Bang model predicts that as one traces the expansion back to the origin of the universe, there is an absolute beginning, where not only space and matter come into existence, but time itself. All right. This is an amazing confirmation of the second premise to our cosmological argument that the universe began to exist. For our second scientific argument, the thermodynamics of the universe. As we previously covered, as if what we previously covered was not enough confirmation so far, yet we have more. According to the second law, all energy in the universe is headed towards an inescapable state of disorder or heat death. To put this in terms of a metaphor, think of the universe like a candle of wax. And the second law, having its effect on this candle of wax, is like a flame that's burning. So the second law of thermodynamics essentially states that this order that we have, this candle of wax, it is constantly burning and burning and burning, and it's headed towards a state of total disorder. It's going to run out. Scientists have been startled by the grim future that the second law predicts when it comes to our universe. Because applying that metaphor back into what we're talking about here, the universe is like this candle of wax. It has a certain amount of usable energy, and the second law of thermodynamics is having its way with the universe. Eventually, just like that candle of wax that burns out and has nothing left to burn, our universe is headed for that, and we are somewhere along our way. So, that raises sort of an interesting question. If the universe has always existed, then why aren't we in that state of heat death already? Well, what you find is the very fact of our existence right now shows the universe has not always existed, but it is like a candle at the Big Bang that has started and it's burning. It had a starting point, and we will eventually get there. Eventually, the sun will burn out, no longer be a main sequence star in our galaxy, and so will the rest of the stars in the universe. The universe will constantly expand in an extremely cold heat death, where life as we know it and all possible life will no longer be possible. So again, this just shows that the universe had to have had a beginning, otherwise we wouldn't be here the way that we are right now according to the laws of thermodynamics. And so we have it. Premise one, just in recap here, summary, anything that begins to exist has a cause. Remember, something cannot come from nothing. It would be worse than magic. The law of causality, the very backbone of science, it's constantly verified, it's never been falsified. Premise number 2, the universe began to exist. We had that philosophical argument, an actual number of past events cannot exist. We can't continue to add to an actual infinity. The very fact that we're breathing, adding second by second, that shows that the universe does not have, it's not past eternal. We're adding on. It had a starting point and we're going into a potential infinite. The scientific argument supported by Einstein's general relativity. We had Friedman and Lemaitre's discovery of the expanding universe, which is further supported by Hubble's discovery of redshift in the galaxies, also known as the Big Bang. Second argument, the laws of thermodynamics. We just talked about that, so I'm sure you guys remember that. So, in conclusion, what does this lead to? All right. Well, if anything that begins to exist as a cause, the universe began to exist. The conclusion that follows logically and inescapably from those premises is the universe has a cause. So the big question is this: what is that cause? You guys have 2 options. 1, abstract objects like numbers and symbols. But abstract objects like numbers and symbols are not causal agents. I say you only have these 2 options because this: when the universe began to exist, time, space, and matter literally came into existence. So by nature, whatever this cause is has to be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial. If it wasn't, then it never really made these things to come into existence. It already existed in it. It didn't start it, right? So what fits those categories? Abstract objects like numbers and symbols, but abstract objects like numbers and symbols are not causal agents. The number 2 can't bring anything into existence. And your other option is an unembodied mind, or center of consciousness. And what's the traditional view? That God has always been, in Christianity, John 4:24, that God is spirit. So you take all of these evidences and you follow it back, and what do you find? It's exactly what Genesis 1:1 says: in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That's all I got for you guys. I appreciate your time. Hopefully